Today I feel compelled to kind of talk about change and happiness and a bit about loving ourselves, which can always be a challenge, and of course loving others. But we're living through unprecedented times in this century, very challenging times. And I know sometimes we think we're alone in this, and this has just been overwhelming through this last year and a half, almost two, when we're moving forward through this. And I really find that we feel kind of like a caterpillar in a cocoon waiting to break free because everything has just been so quiet and held in as we get in that place of protection and considering others. And it has been really a challenging time with COVID. But I also think that we as human beings, we choose to be incarnated at this time, that we choose this for our own lessons and for the lessons of other people. And so for this year, it's been very challenging and it continues to challenge us. And at this point, when we feel like nothing is changing as variants come in and things like that, one of the things I also realized is that when we say things don't change or they don't feel like they change, change is the only thing that is constant. And energy, matter, it's always changing and it's morphing and growing, being born and dying. But I think the one thing when I thought about the change that we're looking for in our world today is the only thing that really is unnatural is when we try not to change. And the way we cling to things instead of letting them just simply be what they are and moving forward. And the way we cling to old memories rather than forming new ones. How many times, and I'm definitely guilty of this, is do you rehash a conversation in your head trying to make a different outcome of something that's already happened? And I think that change is constant, but the way we experience change is really up to us. And if we feel like we're going through change, it's a second chance on life. Even if something in us has to die to change to something better, we sort of have to loosen our grip on that thing that we don't want to change, just sometimes to just give us another chance on life. And at any moment, we can be born all over again into a new experience. And when we talk about not being happy or content or looking for that elusive happiness and contentment, change can be challenging because if we don't have enough things in our life that changes, even then we become unhappy. I've often thought it would be interesting if we had a chance to live in our own utopia, and sometimes we get into that if we get a week's vacation, maybe two now and then, and you can be sitting in the most beautiful place on a beach by a mountainside or a lake, a meadow. But if you're there too long and everything is content and wonderful, we grow bored. And in our minds, we look for something else to change and to offer us new challenges. And I used to think that maybe it was the human condition that requires change, but I almost think that it's the soul's condition that looks for challenges and changes and new experiences. But what makes us happy more than anything is that we have to find that change and be comfortable in our own bodies. And love, I think, loving ourselves in these bodies is releasing the beliefs that we have about them already. And then I say to myself, why is it so difficult to love ourselves? We're taught through the centuries, through cultural beliefs, that we're not good enough, we're not strong enough, we're not smart enough, we're not lovable enough. And I know some of that comes from families. Some of us have gone through very difficult childhoods that have been abusive. And even if they haven't been some of the more abusive, childhoods, we've still come out judging ourselves constantly, whether it's through friends, through our jobs, just through everyday interactions with other people. And I look back at history, and I kind of think Moses heard it correctly thousands of years ago when he got the Ten Commandments. I kind of like to think of them as the 10 instructions rather than the commandments. But when the first two commandments came about and they said, love God and love yourself, loving self is also treating others with respect. And you sit back and you think, Jesus, years later, and I know not everybody here is Christian, but he did have some great, beautiful philosophies and beliefs, and I really do believe he was an ascended master here to teach us, as many were in this life, that teach us about love and kindness. And he focused on those two commandments, saying, love God and love yourself, and everything else is based on those two commandments. And when we act in love, we have to look within and find that emotional maturity to find a place to love ourselves. When I think about God and I think about me being separate from God, I kind of look at God as the light of the world. We hear that analogy often. When I'm talking about Moses, we see a burning bush. And what is that burning bush and what is that light? Well, if God is that light and that burning bush, we are sparks off of that light. So we are a part of God. And in essence, and I say it with all humility, we are God, because God is within us and in every cell of our body, in every breath we take, in every thought we have, and in our free will, God allows us to be who we are. And when we act out of love, are we doing things out of love, or are we doing things to be loved? Are we doing things to be accepted? Or are we doing things to be loved fully, or are we loving others? Many of us look externally rather than become the love internally. And I know I've been at fault of it myself, always looking for that love in other places, when I know one of the best places to find it is within me, because I know God is in there loving me unconditionally. And when we have that awareness that love is within us, it's internal, we really have that opportunity for growth. And therefore, we kind of become the relationship that we're seeking. And we look for others and we look outside of ourselves to give us that love. And I really encourage you to find that feeling of love within you. And it isn't about being good or bad, love or fear, joy or sorrow. It's really what we focus on, because we're in this together and we do this together. If we are all a part of God, if we are all those sparks, we are part of that same fire and love of God. We are in this to do it together. I was reading something the other day that Socrates said, that the perfect human being is all human beings put together. It's all of us together that make perfection. And in that love and unity, we can find tolerance and acceptance of each other. And I think in order to speak the truth of your life, you need to take a moment to find the truth that really resides within you. And we all do continue, and I know even myself, I'm out there reading books and listening to other people. And you know when something is right. I have a very dear friend who she always says, I have goosebumps when she knows the truth is being said. And I love that about her, because she knows she has that little internal barometer that is always telling her what is truth and what is honest. If God's the light and the fire, and we are the spark of God, we get to share those small miracles every day by sharing God's love and kindness. We can be God's lips. We can be his arms, his touch, his ear. And as God shares his gifts with you, you can share your gifts with others. You can share those small miracles every day. When you share your ears, you simply have to sit back and listen to someone. When you share your lips, you can share a smile, a soft kiss, or just your words of encouragement. You can share your arms. I just started thinking of all the different parts of my body and saying, you can embrace someone and give them a hug, or you can share your hands with a gentle touch, or even just simply picking up the phone and calling someone and sharing time with them. When you search for God within you and you really listen, you just have to listen to that small voice inside of you. I don't think it takes an hour or 10 hours of meditation. And I'm not putting that down because I think there's a place for that if that's what you're called to do. But it kind of just, to me, is just the place of stopping and listening and having that conversation with something inside of you. And of course, somebody might say, you're a little psychotic if you're talking to yourself. But I jokingly say, I've been talking to myself for years and having conversations and talking to God. And more than just a prayer that's more structured that religion has taught me growing up, I really just have my conversations with God so frequently and every day, and I listen and expect God to answer me. And that small voice in my head that might be my own voice, I often realize when it's loving and it's kind and it's good, it has to be God. I have to believe that. And I listen to it and I talk to it and I embrace it. And then when I learn that I'm speaking and I speak hopefully the truth, or when I'm speaking to someone, I always say that words should pass through 3 gates. It should be true, it should be necessary, and it should be kind. It should always be kind. So I guess I say, who says that there's no miracles in life today? We can be that small miracle, because when you listen to that small voice within you, it's actually probably a very large voice when we open our hearts, we know that we can get the guidance that we need every day. I'm going to give an example, and the person, one of the members of our church is on, who's going to be recognizing this example. But for probably about a year, I had heard a small voice in my head off and on, you need to send a card to this person. You need to send this card. She had a family member who died, and this person was very special to her. And I listened to this voice off and on. And in the most simple thing, I heard, get a card, get a card. So finally one day, not thinking a lot about it, I went to the store, I looked through the cards, and I found this card that popped up, because the cards are all getting more complex these days. And it popped up with beautiful flowers and butterflies. And it just resonated with me. And I heard, get that card, that's the card. It may not have even been a sympathy card. It might have just been thinking about you, but I just loved the card. And I heard in my head, get the card. And it took a couple of days, I finally wrote a small note in it. I sent it out after a couple more days, taking my time. And I got a call from her a couple of weeks later saying, I can't thank you enough, because it was the anniversary of the time of, I believe it was the anniversary or close to it, around the time of her mother's loss. And she said, I asked for a sign and I asked for butterflies. And who would have thought that that still small voice would have just imparted a little bit of love. And then I realized it was something greater than me that just did that tiny, small little action. And I think we all do things like this every day. We do things out of kindness without even thinking. We follow that little internal barometer of something that tells us to go and do something. And we walk through life sometimes with these little blinders on, but God sees the whole picture. God sees what we need to do when we don't even know what we need to do sometimes. But we are here and we're given the gift of thoughts and emotions. And following those motions of love and kindness is one of the greatest gifts and miracles I think that we can do. So if you're feeling lonely, reach out. If you're feeling neglected, share yourself with someone. If you're feeling unwanted, Help someone that you want to reach out in kindness. Share yourself and share your gifts because you are the spark. Share your spark. I always say, be the reason someone believes in the goodness of people. And when you share your kindness and your love, it not only changes you, but it changes the world. And we are all in this life to be the miracles in each other's lives. So I just encourage you this week and moving forward, listen to that small voice within you this week and follow your internal guidance while always being the spark of God. And I thank you and have a great day.